Cirkut, thank you so much for joining us on VERSED, the ASCAP podcast. So, set the scene for us a little bit. Where are we, and how did this wonderland of vintage gear come to be?
Yes. Well, thanks for having me. Good to be here in my own studio. Yeah, I mean, this room has kind of been kind of a long time coming. It's sort of my first real studio. I've always just had sort of a room with a desk in it, and you kind of make that into a studio, which was fine. I never needed more than that, but after a certain amount of years, I'm like, I think it's time. I bought this house, did a complete renovation of it. This room felt like the perfect studio, so I was like, let's rip it down to the studs, let's build a proper studio, and that's what it is now. And yeah, I mean, it's just everything. I'm spoiled now. I don't want to work anywhere else. Every time an artist is like, can we work at Conway or this studio? I'm like, can you just come to my place? Because everything's just it's all patched in, everything's ready to go, everything, like it's and that's important for workflow. Like, you go to some studios, can we get a mic going? And they're like, oh, it takes like 20 minutes to get going, whereas here it's just like ready to go. So that's important. So
did you have all of these keyboards already in your arsenal, like when you built the studio, or was it like, there's all this shelf space, what am I going to get to fill it up?
It was a bit of a shelf space thing. Yeah. I mean, I've had some stuff that I've acquired over the years. I mean, like, I think this old Jupiter 6 analog synth I've had for maybe like 8 or 9 years, but it was basically collecting dust and storage. And, I've repaired it over the years, and every year it seems to break or something. I think it's actually not even working right now. I don't even turn it on. So I had that. I don't know, a few other things that I've acquired over the past maybe like 5 or 6 years. But since I've got this room now, I've definitely been on a spree, an unhealthy reverb buying spree, where I'm just like, I need that now. I need that. But it's also I'm investing in myself. It's not just like kind of impulse buying. It's like stuff that, I mean, some of these pieces have history. Like the Jupiter 8 has been. The Roland Jupiter 8's been used on, like Michael Jackson's Thriller, infamously, and the OB8 Prince used a lot. Not these particular models, of course, but like just So I like to have these pieces of sonic gear in my arsenal that they inspire. They've been using all these great records, so I want them here. And of course, the plugins are great too, but there's something about, I don't know, I've just become obsessed with it a little bit, so I like having it around. And it's nice too for collaborators. If people come in here, they can jam. Everyone can jam on a keyboard, and it's fun to jam that way. It's hard to jam on a laptop with plugins, so that's part of it too.
I would imagine that it's a very different environment than you had back in Toronto with your old Dreamhouse studios. So
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about those days, what that early studio setup was like, and what it was like in those days trying to build a career from the ground up?
Yeah. That's taking it way back. I got to think a little bit. Yeah. So Dreamhouse it was basically a project that myself and 2 other friends at the time, we were all sort of coming up together. We, we had some support, like, we weren't like, like living check to check or anything, but it was like, very early days. So it was like, we didn't have a lot of resources at our disposal, but we all decided to kind of pitch together and rent this space in downtown Toronto. And one of my friends who was part of the studio, Alex Bonafant, he had a brother-in-law, I believe, who was a drywall contractor of all things. So we decided to take this big open space and kind of just, demolish it and slap up some drywall and make, we made like 4, maybe 5 different rooms. One was kind of the main room, and there were like 4 other ridiculously small rooms that, I mean, it was great at the time because it was a place to work. But, in the summer, there was no AC in some of the small rooms. There was like a sweat box working in there. I mean, but I look back fondly on those times. I mean, that's, that was part of the beginning, and, had a place to work in Toronto in the early days.
So was that the same group of guys that you had the band Let's Go to War with?
That's right. Yeah. You did your research. You're digging. Yeah, you're digging back.
I looked hard on Wikipedia.
Yeah. It's not that hard to find. Yeah.
Well, so I listened to the album yesterday.
Yeah.
It's so fun. The album you put out, Carmageddon.
Yeah. Thanks.
Like, did that really reflect what you guys were listening to and making in the studio back then?
Yeah, that was kind of, I like to look at that as sort of my, I was still learning how to become a producer, really. I mean, I was pretty naive and ignorant at the time. I mean, I had, I feel like I had some initial blossoming talent of some sort. I mean, I was making things that I thought sounded cool that I wanted to hear, so hopefully other people would like it too. But it was, I look back on it now and cringe at some stuff. There were some great songs, of course, but some stuff I'm like, I didn't know how to produce a song, really. I just knew how to make cool beats, and I didn't know how to properly arrange vocals. I mean, the lead vocalist in the group, PJ, I thought to get a big sound with vocal, you stack every vocal. Like, I didn't, and now that would be ridiculous. You have to separate, there's a lead vocal, and then you emphasize certain parts in the chorus, and I was just like doubling every vocal. So anyway, I look back at that like it was a learning process. It was, it was fun. I definitely learned a lot. But yeah, I'm still proud of it. It's part of my past and my history, and we had fun doing it. We went on a couple little mini tours. We opened up for MIA and Chromeo.
Whoa.
Did a little cross Canada tour. We had a bit of an indie buzz going on at the time. In Toronto there was a bit of a scene in, sort of the electronic music. I don't know. We were kind of a hybrid of it was pop but also electronic, and I would DJ at after parties at more kind of electronic dance sort of focused spaces and venues. So we were kind of in that scene. It was a very kind of local Toronto scene, but we're part of it. Yeah.
So I'm just putting this together based on where you were back then in Toronto.
Right.
Was it back in those days, like the Let's Go to War days, that you first met The Weeknd?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess at that studio at Dream House, that's kind of where that started. It was sort of some mutual friends of friends were saying, hey, there's this guy Abel, I think at the time he was called The Weeknd. I think he went by something else before that, but when I met him, he was starting to go by The Weeknd, and he was virtually unknown. I mean, he probably had a bit of a buzz going on in Toronto, but yeah, so I got to meet him through some mutual friends, and he came by the studio, and I forget the exact order of things, but we made basically a song called Hi for This that was on his first ever mixtape. It's literally the first song on the mixtape. And so it was kind of, there were other demos that leaked and stuff, but I like to think it was like his first song ever, But, yeah, so I was a part of that, and again, I kind of look back like with the Let's Go to War stuff, I didn't really know what I was doing, but when I listen back to that record, I kind of like that I didn't know what I was doing, because there's a certain just ignorance and naivete to it where I didn't, now I think about records so much, I'm like calculating, thinking about the arrangement and the pop song structure and this and that, but back then I was just like, this sounds cool, like great, it's done, I think, So
that's probably how innovation works, right? It's just what sounds cool to you in the moment.
Exactly. And around that time, I connected with Doc McKinney. I had known Doc McKinney for a few years before that. We were pretty close, and Ilangelo as well. Of course, they both went on to work with Abel on a lot of the next projects. And then I reconnected. This is going, fast forward a few years, but I reconnected with Doc and Abel on Starboy. But yeah, that's where it started, where I met him, and I mean, I couldn't have predicted. I always knew he was really talented, and he had this drive and passion for music and this work ethic, and I could see him going places, but I mean, I couldn't have predicted he's like, essentially the biggest artist in the world, if not one of, I mean, yeah, it's amazing to see,
Well, it sounds like your relationship with him is really stretched from the beginning to now. I mean, the Die For You remix from earlier this year was massive.
Yeah.
What's it like to see an artist like Abel evolve like that, and to know that you've been a part of this story from the very beginning, really like help kind of define the sound
Yeah.
of him.
Yeah, no, I mean it feels great. I'm proud of it, there was a long gap in between High for this and then when we connected on Starboy, Doc and Ilangelo really helped pave the way with him and further define his sound. So I was absent for a lot of that, but yeah, I mean to be there at the beginning and then work now in the current time as well. It feels amazing. It's cool to see someone go from basically essentially unknown, this Toronto kind of, mysterious character who never showed his face to now he's the biggest, biggest pop star basically. And, yeah. And he deserves it. He's always been extremely hardworking. Like I said, it's no luck involved at all. I mean, he's always had a very clear vision and it's very self-critical and he'll be like, nah, I need to do it again. I need to do the vocal again. It's not good enough, multiple times. And I like that in an artist. I like when they push themselves, so I don't have to, so I don't have to be the bad guy, because I like when people care that much. I work with some artists who maybe are like, oh, is the song done yet? Like, are we done? And I'm like, okay, it's cool, but like, where's the passion? Where's the like the drive and the want to make something great, so that's one thing I love about him.
He's got that passion and drive.
Definitely. Yeah.
So can you talk about the Britney Spears track Poppy?
Yeah.
From what I've read on the interwebs, that had an unexpected path and
yes.
an unexpected impact on your career, your life, really.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely, I think, besides working with Abel, I mean, talk about polar opposite, going from like sort of dark brooding R&B, like after hours kind of like a weekend to like pop, bubblegum pop, Britney Spears pop star, pop icon, two different worlds. But yeah, I mean, how did that come about? Basically at the time I had, a beat CD. We know what CDs are, do we? I had my beat CD with all my beats on them, and I would, as a means of, now you would just send MP3s to people or whatever, but I would, carry around beat CDs and pass them around to people in the industry. And so basically my lawyer at the time, my first lawyer, Chris Taylor, he's a notable Canadian attorney, so I got him he took me on, and he had my beat CD and he just sent it around to a few people, and it landed in the hands of a writer, Nicole Morier, who happened to be in the studio with Britney, and I guess they were just cycling through tracks, like writing to tracks basically, and they picked one of the tracks that I had made and it became Poppy. So it was very lucky. It wasn't, it was, I mean, I guess certain things just work out that way. I put certain things in place to allow it to happen, but it was lucky. Yeah, they wouldn't even tell me who it was at first. Like, wow. My lawyer was like, they're not saying who it is, but apparently a big pop star recorded on one of your tracks. I'm like, tell me who it is. Like, what's going on? Yeah, but then I found out it was Britney, and yeah, that was definitely it got my foot in the door in certain aspects. And before that, I hadn't really had any major releases really. I mean, so that was definitely, that started something for sure. Yeah.
So was it around that time that you decided to make the move to Los Angeles?
Pretty much, yeah. I had started going back and forth between Toronto and LA. Was it even before the Britney? I'm forgetting exactly. Around the same time, I was going back and forth. I had a couple of friends here in LA who were like, "Hey, you should come out. LA's the place for music." Like, so I would just kind of crash on couches or air mattresses and whatever. And I actually ended up, little side story, I ended up going back and forth so much that I got denied entry at the border coming through Toronto International Airport.
Whoa!
I was just going back and forth, and every time I would say, yeah, I'm just here visiting friends, and they're like, are you here for business purposes? No, just visiting. And of course I was trying to network and meet people and get in sessions. So yeah, I got denied, I got turned around. I had like my apartment lined up and everything. I'm going to move to LA. So excited. And then I had to wait another probably like 9 months or so because I had to get a visa,
Wow.
which at the time was hard to get because, I didn't know a lot of people in the industry. If I had to do that now, it would be like easy because I would have a lot of resources to. You had to get sponsor letters. I had to get 10 letters from people to attest to my abilities as an alien of extraordinary talent is what they call it. Yeah. So yeah, that was a little kind of a little side quest that was unfortunate, but eventually I made it to LA, and then that started a new chapter. Yeah.
I hope you put alien of extraordinary talent on your business cards
Yeah,
back then.
exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's what they call it. It's that's what you have to be in order to be, kind of accepted and like you're worth being in this country,
So it sounds like not long after you decided to move here full time,
Yeah.
you start seeing like a steady trickle of singles and tracks that you're writing and producing on
Yeah.
for individual artists, mostly one at a time.
Yeah.
But it seems like throughout your career, it's kind of alternated between that, like a single track for this person, single track for this person, and then other opportunities where you're getting to work on 3-4 tracks for a project, or
Right.
sometimes like a full album.
Exactly.
So can you talk about like what are the sort of the pros and cons of working on major projects like that versus going one track at a time, just
Yeah.
from a creative perspective? I mean, do you prefer one over the other?
Yeah. I think I enjoy both. I like the spontaneity and sort of mixing up, working with different artists. Like for the past few months, if I even just look back at my calendar, it might have been a different artist every week, a different. I like to mix it up because sometimes doing the same thing, it can be exhausting and you sort of lose perspective on things. So I like to mix it up. I like to work with, new developing artists. I like to work with rappers. I like to work with R&B artists, dance artists, whatever. It keeps things fresh for me. But yeah, I also love diving into a whole project too. I think I enjoy both at different times. It's just kind of depending on what sort of mood I'm in and if I want to commit to doing a whole project with someone because, it's kind of a lot. It takes a lot of time and energy and effort, and you get really close to this artist or the collaborators you're working with, and which is a great thing. But also it's it can feel like you're sort of in the trenches and it's a lot of work, which sometimes it's always the process is always great, but it's it's a lot of investment into something that you don't know, like, what will necessarily happen with it next. Like, not just speaking about like commercial success, but you don't know how it's going to go, but that's part of the excitement too. Like, you're starting a journey, you're going on a journey with someone, and you're creating a full body of work, which I like doing that too.
So you've done that a couple times with Ava Max now.
Yeah.
I adore her most recent album. I was just listening to it again yesterday.
Thanks.
And it sounds like you used every keyboard in this room on that thing.
Yeah. No, we definitely went in on that sound. I enjoyed making that album. I'm proud of it. I feel like it's a great dance album. It has a sound to it. I feel like working with Ava over the years, we've definitely established, we kind of have a sound together, and she has her own sound, of course. And it was a great experience.
Well, so I would imagine that when you're working on 10, 15 tracks with a single artist, for a whole album project, it can be really exciting to craft that sound of that album together. Like, there's a coherence there that you might not get
Exactly
on another record where you have a different writing production team for every song.
Totally.
So how does that work when you're working with the artist to craft the sound? I mean, let's use the Diamonds and Dance Floors, right?
Yeah.
Let's use Diamonds and Dance Floors as just an example.
Right.
So how do you craft the what you want? How do you make the decision about how you want that album to feel and to sound?
Yeah. I think it's, first talking with the artist and just, establishing, communicating what they want to do. At the end of the day, it's their, primarily their project, is their voice. They have to go out and perform it. So it's got to be something that they love and that is their vision. of course I'll suggest my own things, and I'm always going to do kind of things the way I do them. I'm not always going to completely do a 180 and switch things up. I have sort of my sound of what I do. But yeah, I mean, we'll listen to some of our favorite music. I mean, all music is drawn from somewhere, inspiration, not compositionally, but just inspiration wise. I mean, so yeah, we established like we want this kind of feeling, we want this kind of sound, we want people to feel this way when they listen to it. And yeah, we decided we wanted it to be up tempo and fun, and kind of bright and pop and in your face, but also a lot of the lyrical themes are kind of more about heartbreak and maybe darker themes. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. And also for a full album like that, for example, it's it's not necessarily all me. I'm collaborating with so many different people, including other producers. So sometimes my role, as an executive producer as well, there's some tracks I'll produce and write from the ground up, from nothing. Some stuff we'll get an outside song. Someone will send me a song, someone else a song that, hey, this could be great for Ava. And then I'll say, yeah, this is great. Let me do my thing with it. Let me kind of add my sauce, and maybe I'll cut her vocals, and it'll kind of take on that sound, maybe. But yeah, there's that aspect to it too. So
I was going to ask about your role as a writer and a producer kind of intertwines.
Yeah,
it sounds like it might take a different shape, or it might be balanced differently depending on the song or the project.
Yeah.
So do they feel like this, like just two sides of the same coin, or do you usually separate those two?
I feel like my definition of a writer in who I am is I'm not the one sitting down with a pen and pad writing lyrics and then with an acoustic guitar like thinking about, I'm definitely more on the production side of things. I say that's my forte. I mean, I'm a writer in the sense that I'm a composer, I'm writing chords, I'm writing melodies, I'm that kind of stuff. I mean, I'll kind of adapt to whatever kind of project it is or whoever's in the room at the time. If I'm with, two people who, one is like an incredible melodic writer and maybe one is their forte is lyrics, I'm going to lean on them to do that. I'm not going to be like, hey guys, I have this great concept. Like, that's not my thing, I might have a concept here and there. Sometimes, I'll have a little, hey, how about this? And they'll go, oh, you got a good one. Like, but I know who I am and what I do best, and I try not to. I think collaboration works best when everybody is just firing on all cylinders. They're each doing the best that they can do in their own, expertise, like the best that they are in their own craft. So I try to be cognizant of that, and yeah, just sort of know my role, I mean, and it'll change. Like if I'm in a room with maybe just the artist, if it's just me and an artist, then I'll try to contribute more on the actual writing side of the top line. And, but then there's other times where I'll just be making a beat and I'll be kind of listening in the back to what they're doing on the couch over there. And I might not even say anything, and they might have even like written almost a whole song, and I'll turn around like, that sounds awesome. Or I'll be like, man, maybe this melody could kind of, I'll make little edits or something that I'm hearing. But it's different every time. I try to adapt every situation.
Well, so you mentioned for Poppy, that was a track that you had already written, and then
exactly.
two other songwriters writing to it.
Yeah.
How often does that happen where you got a beat that you already love and you just come to a session with that, or like pitch it to an artist?
Yeah. I'm finding like lately it's been a bit less so. I mean, I feel like just that, I don't know, the era we're in, it's kind of more of an organic, like people have been liking to start from scratch. We'll start with just chords, maybe, some kind of, could be a little seedling of an idea, maybe just a little loop. But I'm finding that writers, and it's probably for good reason, they like to write to more simple, just ideas that aren't too, I guess it goes back to also just my history as a beat maker and producer who's very, focused on the sonics of everything. I would tend to overproduce a beat, and it might be hard to write to, so that's something I've had to learn is, you know, it's harder to write to tracks, I think, because they can be so. I'd be producing sort of for other producers, like, so other producers can be like, oh, that's a hard beat, you know, kind of thing, as opposed to making a track that is easily, you know, that is inspiring and that has room for a vocal and that is, you know, that'll inspire a song, you know. So I've had to learn that. But there were a few songs that came out of just sending tracks. I mean, trying to think. One of the first ones, early ones, was Rihanna. It was a song called "You to One," which is one of my favorite songs. Actually, it like when it was released, it kind of got a little bit overshadowed by "We Found Love." It came out right after this massive smash, "We Found Love," and you know, but I still love the song. And that was a track I'd made with Dr. Luke and John Hill, and we sent that to Esther Dean, and I think she just sent back the whole song. And at the time, I was still kind of new. I was like blown away. Like,
It's
this
as
is
simple as that.
insane. Yeah, like, yeah. So it's happened. There's probably a few other times where songs have been written to tracks, but I'd say lately it's more, we get in a room, it's more organic. We're kind of, you know, playing chords, starting idea, even just talking first. We might not even work for the first hour or so of the session. We'll just talk about what's going on in your life, what's, you know, how you feeling, what's the vibe, what have you been listening to, what's, you know, what's the vibe, kind of thing. Just, I think that's important before just getting right into making something right away. You have to, you know, just set the mood, you know.
So let's go a little bit more concrete about some specific songs from the past year or so.
Yeah.
So, 7 by Jungkook. I just saw this massive plaque hanging out in your hallway.
Yeah, it just came. Yeah.
Hugely successful song. Congratulations,
Yeah,
first
thanks.
of all.
Thanks.
It's got like this really nicely textured production. Like a lot of things happen in there, like the acoustic guitar loop. That's just it's a little unexpected way to start it, right?
Yeah.
So, where can we most clearly hear the Cirkut handiwork in this track? Like what was your role in the songwriting process?
Yeah, so that was basically, well, actually, speaking of tracks, yeah, that did start as a track. Yeah, that would be the most obvious one. So it was me and producer Andrew Watt. It was our first time kind of connecting. We had met over the years, crossed paths, but we were finally like, let's get in the studio, you know, and we think we work well together. So I think that track that became 7 was the very first like piece of music we ever worked on together. We just kind of got in, and with no particular goal in mind, we're just like, let's jam, you know, let's play. So yeah, Watt started playing those chords. He's a great guitar player, something I don't do. That's why collaborating is so great, because you know, that's his strength and I don't do that. So then I come in and do my thing. So yeah, he started playing those chords, and then I was like, oh, I think this could be cool. Started just sort of lining up some drums. I always have like, I'll hear something in my head and then I'll try to recreate what I'm hearing in my head, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, I was hearing this sort of like garage 2-step kind of UK sort of feel to it. So yeah, I mean the chords were soulful. I felt like, let's kind of mix this with sort of a more electronic vibe. And yeah, I mean, you know, did the drums, did kind of a bass line to it. And so, and essentially, yeah, it was a track that we had made, and it just kind of sat on our laptops for a few months, for, you know, like many other tracks. That's kind of how it works. And so then next thing in the song was, I think I had sent the track independently from Watt. I sent the track to Teron Thomas, who's an incredible writer who I work with a lot. I think I'm actually seeing him today too. Yeah, so I sent that track to him and was like, yo, I think you would do something really good on this. And I think Watt had sent it to John Bellion separately. We didn't even know. We just were like, I don't know, we just sent the track. So they each sent back their writing on this track, and there were great parts in each of them. So me and Watt kind of were like, send us the vocal files, and we just put together, we took, you know, Teron's chorus, and then I think John had a second half of the chorus. I don't remember exactly which part, but we tacked that on into the chorus, and then I don't remember the exact order, but we sort of Frankenstein together, we do that a lot. I mean, there's a great idea can come from anywhere. You could just take this little piece and, you know, put it in the context of the song, and it works. So anyway, long story short, yeah, we put the song together, and it remained a demo on our computers for a while. And I mean, next thing you know, we're in the studio with Jungkook and we're recording him on it, and that was a fun process. Yeah.
Was any of that done here?
We recorded at a different studio, but I worked on some of the production. It was kind of three different studios. We started it at Watt Studio. I did some stuff here on my own to it, and then we recorded the vocals. We recorded Jungkook on it in a different studio.
How about Unholy? Sam
Yeah.
Smith, Kim Petras.
Yeah.
What a unique sounding song, and even in the context of the Gloria album,
Right.
this is the one hyperpop song that I can remember.
Yeah.
It's in its own universe. So how did you and your co-writers settle on the sound and the scope of that track?
Yeah. That was, yeah, I mean, we were on a writing trip we were in Jamaica, got invited by Sam to go there. It was a fun process. I mean, we're all there. It felt like a vacation kind of, we're in this beautiful kind of, tropical kind of location, great vibe. So yeah, on the first day we were like, maybe we should plan this out. Maybe we should have two different rooms, we'll have an A room and a B room, and sort of make it like a camp, and that was fine. I mean, I think some songs came out of that, but then the next day everyone was like, we all want to just be in the same room. Let's all just kind of like be in the same room and jam out. And that's when Unholy happened. We were all just sort of having fun, and I don't know, it was kind of a bit of a blur, like the order of exactly how the song came together, but yeah, I think maybe Omer Fetty, he started playing these chords on guitar, which is funny because I don't think there's any guitar in the song, but like that's how it starts. Sometimes it's just chords. It could be on piano or guitar. Yeah, so he started playing that, and then yeah, we all started kind of like humming melodies, and this sort of melody of the chorus started coming together, and then I was like with Ilya, I'm like, yo, maybe pull up this bass sound. I think that bass sound would sound cool in there, and this was a different thing also because I was working with Ilya, who's a really talented producer, and he was sort of running the rig, whereas I'm usually the one running the rig, like, so I was kind of more being the backseat driver, like, hey, maybe try this sound, try this, doing that, which is usually what other people are doing to me. I'm usually the one, and they're like, do that. So yeah, it was, it came together. I mean, as soon as we had sort of the foundation of the track, like, Sam and Jimmy Napes took it to, I guess, they walked around with the track. We bounced them an MP3 of the track, and they just started writing lyrics to it. Came back a couple hours later, and was like, guys, check this out, we got lyrics. And it was essentially what is now Unholy, but I think it was slightly different. There might have been like some different lyrics, or might have been a bit more like vulgar even. I don't know exactly what it was, but yeah, so I don't know, it was just, it all kind of came together. It was kind of a blur, but it was yeah, really. And at the end of the trip also, we were all kind of like, yeah, this was good, Unholy's like where we were like calling it Body Shop. Even we didn't even know if it was going to be called Unholy. We were calling it Body Shop or Unholy. Yeah, that was a cool one. Like, maybe, I don't know, we'll see what happens with it. None of us, like, I'd like to think that we're, we did these masterminds, we made this, like, we knew that it would be a hit. Like, I didn't personally know. I thought it was just kind of left of center, like, very different sound for Sam, very different. And I mean, I guess that ended up working out because it was so different that I guess it cut through and had a reaction. And of course, when we got back to LA, it was Sam's idea to get Kim on it, and I had known Kim for years. I worked with her from almost the beginning. I worked on her stuff in, what was it, 2016 or so, some of her earlier stuff. So I had already known Kim, and I was happy that Sam suggested Kim. I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Like, let's get her in here. So she did her thing on it, and then yeah, that came together.
So that whole mass of voices, it's like basically a choir,
yeah,
that you have for the chorus section. Is that all just like double, triple, quadruple tracked Sam?
So there's some of, actually on the day of in Jamaica, there's some of all of us in the room doing the chorus, gang vocal, of course. You got to do that.
Love it.
Yeah,
it's
I
like
mean, we were cracking up. We were just because everyone was doing sort of different octaves. Like I don't dare sing high. I can't, so I was kind of doing a middle octave, and then we were like, okay, let's do a high octave of it. And it was just singing these lyrics that are, just singing it in such a way that we were all just like rolling on the floor laughing. It was so ridiculous.
it's like
But
Queen
it added to
style.
it. I mean, it really, there's a sound in there for sure. And then, yeah, I think afterwards Sam did a ton of stacks, and there might have been even a few other background vocalists on it, like a choir. But yeah, that was, and also we got to work at Capitol Studios, which I believe I think it's closed right now, isn't it? Or like, I heard that they were undergoing some renovations or something. I think it's like closed at the moment. So we were one
Wow.
of the last sessions in there that got to use Capitol Records until it reopens in a year, or I don't know. But we got to use their reverb chambers that they have
Famous
there.
reverb chamber.
We ran the gang vocals through the reverb chambers, and that added to the sound there, and used a lot of their outboard gear. I mean, there's more like kind of nerd stuff, but we used like an original Fairchild compressor. We did a shootout between all the different compressors. There's the Fairchild, the Unfairchild, and then the Magic Death Eye compressors. I mean, we had fun. That was kind of the finishing stages of the record. But yeah, that was fun to work there.
That's incredible. I would like to believe that if you're listening really closely,
Yeah,
someone can like hear
yeah.
Henry Circuit Walters' voice.
It's in there. It's in there. There's even me on it's kind of buried in there, but there's one track where I think even I don't know who was recording it. They just pulled out their cell phone and was recording like a voice note, and I remember I was tapping on a bottle, and someone else was like just like tapping their knee or something. There's like just random, which are cool. I love those kind of things because those add this special sort of unquantized sort of random DIY element to it, where everything's not so programmed and on the grid and calculated. It's just this random. The vibe of that day is in the track.
So you've had so many incredible successes over the years. What are a few moments or a few songs that stand out to you as your most memorable creative triumphs? Like, even if it wasn't successful commercially, just the things that
Yeah.
you're most proud of creatively.
I think "Roar" by Katy Perry was a big one for me. That was, yeah, I'm proud of that production. I'm proud of that song. I mean, it was interesting because you wouldn't think of it as like a hip hop track, but I actually started the beat that became the song "Roar." I started with just drums. It was like boom, 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 which is kind of a swung. It's kind of a hip hop, it's like a 90s boom bap kind of beat, which the song is not that at all, but that was sort of my little like my tribute to my past of like growing up on 90s hip hop and that swing to those drums, and so it started with that. And so anyways, yeah, Dr. Luke and I we kind of fleshed out the track from that and worked on the song, got in the studio with Katie and Max Martin and Bonnie McKee. And yeah, I just remember, I mean, we played the track for Max. It was one of my first times working with Max. I'd maybe worked with him a couple times before, but this was like a big deal. Like, I'm going in with Katy Perry, going in with Dr. Luke and Max Martin, and Bonnie McKee. They had created Teenage Dream, they had created California Girl, all these amazing songs. Like, and I'm kind of a guest in this world, so I'm like, I got to bring my A game, But yeah, we started going through tracks, and we played the track that would become Roar. And I remember Max is incredible, not only a big picture producer and obviously a huge hit maker, but his melodic prowess is just second to none. He's like, the melodies he comes with, so we played the track, and he was like, oh, let me do a voice note. So we started going no like lyrics or anything, just that's how a lot of songs come out. It's just a melody first. And to see that, and I was like, Max Martin is singing over my track. This is so cool. So yeah, it kind of, I don't know, long story short, it started like that. And then once the song was finished, I mean, Bonnie and Katie would go into the other room and work on lyrics. They came back with essentially what was Roar. They might have done a few revisions, but they came back and You're Gonna Hear Me Roar, and like, I don't know, just the feeling. I don't know, something I remember about the feeling of that when it was done and we listened back to it. It was just undeniable. We're all like, this is, you know, this is a great song. So, I mean, yeah, that's a memorable one. I mean, my experience working with Abel on Starboy, I got to work with Daft Punk, which I've been like huge fans of theirs for a long time. Like that was definitely a big bucket list dream come true. So that would have to be up there. Yeah, I mean, I remember working on Katy Perry Wide Awake. That's one of my favorite songs, actually. It maybe wasn't as, massive of a smash as like some of her other songs, but I really love that song. And I remember it so vividly because we actually were literally wide awake. We were up all night. We were up for probably, like 30 hours finishing the song because it had to be done for this movie. She did the Part of Me movie, I guess, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, yeah, we had to pull an all-nighter, and we were recording Katie's vocals up until like 1 a.m. Then she went home, and then me, Luke, and Max were in the studio finishing the production. And that was memorable to me because that taught me kind of, the work ethic and the discipline it takes. Like when you have to finish something, like, you can't just go home. Like, this is grind time. We got to finish this. So that was like a great experience for me,
So obviously, if you want to have the kind of success that you've had, you need to be great at what you do. Talented at your instrument and production, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Are there some other qualities that you think a writer or producer needs to have, maybe just in their personality or their work ethic, that they really need to have to win the trust of collaborators?
Yeah, I think it definitely obviously varies by person. I mean, everyone has their own style of working. I have my own style. I'm definitely more kind of, I'd say, chill and like kind of not too, kind of more on the quiet, reserved side. And, I'm about the process. I'm about the work. And, there's some other producers who are really loud and will jump up on tables and they'll sell the song and they'll like really, like get everyone hyped up and excited, which is amazing. That's a skill in itself too. That's not really my style, but, I think it runs, there's a whole spectrum of different personalities that, sometimes you got to know what combination works. Maybe that brash, aggressive, loud person, an artist might not like that so much. And then other artists might be like, yeah, this is amazing. So kind of have to feel out like what the vibe is. You got to read the room. You got to see what is going to make the artists and collaborators comfortable. And like I said before, sometimes it is just talking for an hour or two, or sometimes you might not even play a single note. Like, like, hey, you know what? I'm not really feeling the vibe. Let's get back to it tomorrow. Like that. You need to understand when that's the vibe too. You can't force something, so, and also when, an artist is recording in the booth, you have to know it's a fine, delicate balance. If I'm vocal producing someone, you have to know when to be like, do it again, it's not good enough, but doing it in a way that is not going to hurt their ego or make them like, you don't want to be rude to them. You want to help them and coach them and encourage them, so that's an art in itself too. I mean, so I think that's part of personalities that come through, but yeah, it's a whole bunch of different things.
It takes a lot of awareness, just
Yeah.
like personal awareness and what do they call it? Emotional intelligence.
Exactly.
I think they call it, just like being able to get where somebody else is.
Totally.
Reading the room.
That's very important. Yeah. Yeah, I've had to learn that too. I didn't always have that necessarily. I mean, I might have been just the beat maker, kind of making the beat in the room, and then, okay, what happens next? I don't really know, but I've learned how do you collaborate with people? How do you, read the room and, use that emotional intelligence. That's something I've had to acquire. And yeah, I think it's that combination of sort of my sonic technical knowledge mixed with that, I think is, I feel like that's what kind of makes me, not to, brag, but like that's what I bring to the table. I feel like I make a comfortable environment for people. They feel comfortable working in this environment with me, and I deliver results. I'm here to work. I'm here to finish the song. I'm here to make it as great as possible. And so I think it's a combination of things, and everybody has their own unique combination.
Circuit, what is something that you love listening to that we might be surprised to hear about?
Let me think. um, I mean, I don't know. A lot of it is maybe would not be surprised to think, but like I don't know. I'm trying to think. I like
Well,
a
hit me
lot of
with that,
like
too.
I like a lot of just like cheesy like 90s bubblegum like techno like Euro trance kind of music that like I don't know, it's corny but it's also so good, you know. Like it's kind of you
Well,
know.
hit me with some names.
Okay, I mean, I'm not trying to call them. I don't want to like disrespect them, but like, you know, can you imagine me blasting like, you know, Aqua or La Bouche or like CNC Music Factory in my car? You know, like, yeah, you might catch me doing that. You know, like, um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's not too many things I'm like embarrassed to that are like guilty pleasures. I feel like everyone has their own taste, and no one should be ashamed of what they listen to. You know,
Oh
but-
yeah, I don't even believe in the concept of the guilty pleasure. It's
Right.
just pleasure.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And like just like proclaim it proudly.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, yeah, my taste ranges, and I feel like, you know, maybe it shows in my production sometimes, but I love, you know, some of the more, I love a lot of like sort of more down tempo, like Massive Attack and Portishead, and like, you know, anywhere from there to like indie electronic stuff like MGMT and Empire of the Sun, and like more electronic like Boards of Canada, and then there's like the more, you know, of course 90s hip hop stuff, and then there's the dance. I love French house. I love Justice and all the Ed Banger music. That's been hugely influential on me, and you know, of course all the classic 70s soul, you know, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, all the soul, you know, many different eras. I feel like it's all kind of just like in me in one way or another, but
It all feeds in.
yeah, I like a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Who's one musician that you'd want to work with that you haven't had the opportunity to yet?
Let me think.
Could be an artist, could be a session person, another producer, anybody.
Yeah, you know, I've gotten that before, and I've always kind of like drawn a blank on that one. I don't really have like a bucket list. Well, okay, I guess Beyonce would be one. Yeah, I just thought of one. Yeah,
Good choice.
Beyonce's up there. Lady Gaga. Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
make it happen, people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If you're
She's
listening
incredible.
to Verse the ASCAP podcast,
Yeah.
Beyonce, Lady Gaga.
Yeah, no, okay, so yeah, those would be two for sure. But yeah, I try not to like, those would be goals, that would be great, but also I just, you know, I just love the process. Like, I could be equally as happy working with a new developing artist that I'm just passionate and excited about working on as like the big A-list star. I mean, it kind of just depends on the day. Like, you know, I just love the process, so it doesn't matter who I'm with necessarily. But no, those would be, yeah, those are on my list.
So when you were telling the story about Roar, I heard you beatboxing, and it reminded me of a rumor that I heard about last week.
Right.
So tell me where you were last week and how you ended up beatboxing in the halls of Congress.
Yes, that does sound quite crazy when you say it like that. Yeah, so I was in Washington, D.C. I was there for, you know, there was a 3-day event that ASCAP that you guys put on. And yeah, one part of that, there was, of course, the performance night where a bunch of songwriters, you know, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, Madison Love, Jermaine Dupri, Pasek and Paul. There was a bunch of performers, you know, so that was a really fun night.
Matthew West too.
Matthew West was great. I honestly hadn't known him before, but he was amazing. I really liked him a lot. So that was kind of the fun night, and then the next day, I hadn't even gone on this trip for this purpose. I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll go to Washington D.C., you know, and then we're like, well, you know, do you want to walk the halls with us? Do you want to, you know, I didn't even know what walking the halls was, but I'm like, okay, I assume it's the Capitol Hill, walking the halls of Congress. So, yeah, I mean, you know, the goal, you know, the mission statement was presented to me, and of course I was aware of all this, but that we were there to basically give our, you know, to advocate for songwriters to in this new era that we're in, there's many different concerns. There's, songwriters aren't being paid enough for their work. There's AI, which is coming in the picture. That was kind of the primary focus of this trip. So, yeah, I mean, I was part of this group of people of, like 4 or 5 people, and we met with 5 or 6 or 7 different congressmen, congresswomen, senators. I don't remember their exact titles, but it was amazing. Yeah. So yeah, the beatboxing part, we met with one of the congresswomen who was, I forget what her district was, but might have been Vermont or something. I'm blanking on her name, but she was like, I forget how it started, but she was like, oh yeah, I like music. Like or maybe someone asked her like, what kind of music do you like or something? And she was like, yeah, I got this rap that I did or something like that. So she started rapping. I don't remember what the lyrics were. It was something about like, political stuff. She was rapping some political, and I was like, okay, she started rapping a cappella. Then I just started beat. I was like, like, it was kind of ridiculous at the time. I regret doing it. No, it was fun.
It sounds like a highlight of your career.
Yeah, no. Highly embarrassing. No, it was fun. That really broke the ice and lightened the mood. We're here with like everyone's in suits. This is Washington D.C. This is so serious, and here we are beatboxing and rapping with a congresswoman on Capitol Hill. So that was a highlight. Yeah.
Definitely one of the more memorable things.
Yeah.
That congresswoman
didn't think that would happen.
Couldn't
have imagined that happening. Yeah.
So, how about the future? Like, what are you looking forward to about the future?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I want to keep doing I don't plan on drastically changing things. I want to keep, trying to make great music every day. I want to challenge myself. I don't want to just keep doing the exact same thing. I've tried to challenge myself in a few different ways. Enter into some new ventures, like signed a few really talented songwriters and producers. So I'm starting a publishing company, very small. I'm not trying to sign a ton of people, and I still want to really focus on what I do best, but I want to help other people, help people like I was helped when I was coming up, and in turn they help me because they're really talented, and when we collaborate together we do great things. So yeah, that's one thing I'm excited about. And yeah, developing new talent. Got my sights set on a few things, and besides music, just kind of live life and try to be happy and be thankful, and just take it a day at a time kind of thing, and yeah, just enjoy life.
Well, Cirkut Man, it has been a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you. Thank you for spending so much time with ASCAP.
My pleasure. This is great.